YouTubers out there. This is Jerry the Movies, and this week we're going to review YouTubers out there. This is Jerry the Movies with your host Jerry Saravia. So today we're going to talk briefly about Pacific Rim, which is a new Guillermo Del Toro film that's currently playing in theaters. And I would say it's pretty much what you might expect. A monster movie, sort of a hark back to the Godzilla films of the 1950s and beyond, not necessarily the 1998 remake that we had a few years ago with Matthew Broderick. The less said about that, the better. And by the way, there is a new Godzilla movie coming from Hollywood to be released next year, 2014, so who knows what that's going to be like, but I doubt it will be anywhere near as good as this movie, Pacific Rim. Guillermo Del Toro, by the way, is a director who's done films such as the Hellboy movies, which starred Ron Perlman, Pan's Labyrinth, his first film, his debut, Chronos, back from 1994. So he's done other films, and in fact he was working on and was going to initially direct The Hobbit, and had worked on that for, I think, at least a couple of years, pre-production and the script and so on. So, but here we are, and it's Pacific Rim. Now, what's nice about this movie is, first of all, it's been kind of advertised, I think, in a misadvertised, to say the least. Seems that the movie gives the impression there are these giant robots in the movie, and they fight these sea monsters, which are known as the kaiju, and that's the movie. And of course there's some characters involved and blah blah blah. Now, yes, there is quite a few scenes of these robots known as Jaegers who fight these sea monsters known as kaiju. But that's not all there is to the film, although there is certainly a great deal of that. Pounding each other and throwing each other across, I should say punching each other, let's say punching each other. Basic combat between these two monsters, for lack of a better term. So, now the kaiju are flying sea creatures who are roughly the size of one Godzilla and a half. They cause major destruction to almost every city on Earth. And they emerge from the sea, from some sort of a portal in the Pacific Rim. And they have a roar that is pure Tyrannosaurus Rex times 1,000,000 decibels. I mean, they are loud. And with a bite that certainly can cause a lot of damage, not to mention a deadly acid that spews from their mouths. Now, the humans don't know what to do, and they stop their Jaeger program. They terminate it because something goes wrong, and basically they just feel there's really nothing they can do against these creatures that seem to keep, they're like being cloned in some strange way. They keep emerging from the sea. So after all that, the program is restarted, and that is by Stacker Pentecost, Commander Stacker Pentecost, played by Idris Elba, who some of you may know from The Office. He appeared briefly in a few episodes a couple of seasons back. Also, he was in Prometheus, the Ridley Scott film from one summer ago. And he also appeared in Ghost Rider Part 2, and so on and so forth. Anyway, he's the commander. He decides to relaunch this program of robots and have more advanced weaponry and so on and so forth. So he commissions a former pilot named Raleigh, played by Charlie Hunnam, who is from Sons of Anarchy, a television show. And Raleigh lost his brother during a dangerous combat mission with the fierce kaiju. So anyway, he has to kind of get over it and re-enlist him to help fight the kaiju. Now, the way this works is you need two pilots, and they are actually inside of this robot, this Jaeger, which runs 25 stories tall. I mean, it's like, as I said, half a skyscraper tall. And both of them have to be in unison. Their minds have to be in unison to operate these robots, and they have to be locked in a neural bridge called drifting, which is essentially a psychic linkage. So any past traumatic memories that they have, in particular involved with the kaiju, which have been around a long time, can cause problems. And then they can't operate these gigantic robots. So there's a untested and ambitious pilot named Mako, played by Rinko Kikuji, who as a child encountered one of these beasts. So basically, Pacific Rim is filled with the kaiju fighting the Jaegers and vice versa. Now I saw this film in 3D, and the effects are truly astounding and eye-opening. They're really just, they are amazing. And these creatures are, if I hadn't seen it in 3D, I would still feel it's kind of like this all the way through the movie, because it really, they're massive and very, very three-dimensional and very real, very realistically conveyed through the magic of CGI and some practical effects, I imagine. Now, Guillermo Del Toro never lets the action up, though he does pause for occasional character moments and various idiosyncrasies. And there's a chilling moment where Mako, um, who's the pilot, is she's a screaming, crying child in a flashback of a traumatic memory that is triggered, where she hides in terror from the kaiju, and it's a near apocalyptic moment of almost Hiroshima-like extremes. It's really vivid and nightmarish, beautifully done, and very scary, very terrifying. It is this memory that prevents her at one point from operating the Jaeger when they do kind of a, not even a test run, they're ready to go out and fight, and she can, and she's ready to fire one of those weapons, the plasma weapons, while they're still inside this facility and dozens of people are around. Anyway, Pacific Rim, I believe, could have used a lot more moments like that of such nightmarish intensity, so that we could cling a little closer to these characters. But the characters are sharply defined personalities. They're not automatons like you would find in a Michael Bay Transformers movie. And with all due respect to Michael Bay, I like the first Transformers movie, but the second one, no. And I'm not sure I'll ever sit through the third one. But anyway, Charlie Hunnam's Raleigh is a soldier who does his best to ignore his brother's death. He does a very good job of conveying some of that hurt and pain, but still trying to be, a hero, basically. Kikuchi's Mako wants revenge for the loss of her family due to the kaiju attack, but has a hard time, obviously, suppressing her past trauma. Eventually she gets over that. And Pentecost tries to be very calculating and remote, but his past memories also sneak up on him, and occasionally a nosebleed occurs when, I guess, something, everything, the past kind of infects everyone. It infects all the characters, and there are triggers that can bring it up, Now, adding all the noise, the CGI and the practical effects, the film also has a very disarming sense of humor, which I liked a lot too. That's pretty much a Del Toro trademark. I mean, you're not going to find that any of his movies are humorless. That humor adds just a little extra, to the film's oomph. And the humor is in thanks to the two geeky scientists that we see in the film, who basically have a PhD on the kaiju. They know everything about the kaiju. They are Charlie Day, who's from the TV show Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He plays Dr. Newton Grazel, and he very much reminded me of Sam Rockwell, who could have played this role just as easily. Anyway, this Dr. Newton suspects these beasts are being cloned, and he may have an idea of how to defeat them. That has something to do with a portal, but I don't want to give too much away. And Bern Gorman is Dr. Herman Gottlieb, who feels that Newton is a manic personality. So there's like a little competition between the two, and a lot of humorous asides there. But the piece de resistance is Ron Perlman, who has appeared in Sons of Anarchy, also played Hellboy. I think back in the day he did the TV series Beauty and the Beast with Linda Hamilton. So he's always a lot of fun to watch. Any movies, and I'm always interested. And his character, who wears gold strip shoes that have to be seen to believe, and they they make this pounding noise that is kind of mirrors the monsters themselves when they emerge from the sea, or from somewhere from the outer margins of the city. They pound their feet, and you can really hear it. Same thing with this character. And Perlman is he plays a character named Hannibal Chow, and he's an underground black market salesman who buys kaiju body parts. So a little bit of some, everybody needs to market and off of any tragedy they have to exploit it. So there's a lot of that in this picture too. Pacific Rim is an upbeat science fiction epic, and it's just a lot of fun to watch. And aside from the fact that it's pretty much like an old Godzilla flick mixed with the Transformers, with, pardon the pun, but you can't help but think of the Transformers when you see these robots, at least nowadays. Except that the Jaegers, who look like Transformers, are far more impressive, much more grandiose, and they don't really have personalities per se, not like the Transformers, but they can cause damage, and they're just it's something grandiose about looking at them. They're really very imaginatively conceived. Now it also helps that we sympathize with all the characters enough to hope that they survive all the wrath and fury of these winged sea creatures, the kaiju. Because if you don't have that, then you just have a movie which is a display of special effects and nothing else. So you have to have characters you care about. I mean, this has been a thing that's been going on for so long with summer blockbusters or any type of blockbuster that comes out anytime during the year, where if there's science fiction and elements or whatever the case may be, first and foremost, you have to care about the characters, empathize with them, sympathize with them, something. Cling to them, make them all unique personalities, and they've done that in this film. Now, Del Toro apparently cut 1 hour out of this film, and so I'm assuming this was almost like a 3-hour plus movie, and that's a shame because apparently he cut out a lot of the character nuance that I think I was kind of clamoring for in this film. Not to say there isn't, but you kind of wish there was more. But maybe that's also a mark of a good screenplay, because I cared about the characters enough to wish I saw more of them. It's almost like, in a way, this is kind of off track a little bit, but when you watch Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown, I mean, that movie, the first couple of times I saw it, I was so involved with the characters that I wouldn't have cared if the movie ran an hour longer, and it was already a 2.5-hour movie. So when you're really invested in them, and you feel they could have been given more to do, that's good. So maybe in the sequel, which apparently may or may not happen. The film kind of fell below expectations for box office, but maybe with word of mouth, perhaps more people will see it next week, and I hope so. I don't know. So anyway, that would be the only real complaint, but who am I to complain? Pacific Rim is fun. It's a lot of fun to watch. Great, good characters that could have used more development, but it's just an old-fashioned type of monster movie. It's not dark or subterranean, which seems to be the thing now, like everything has to be Christopher Nolanized. It's just upbeat, it's fun, and the humor elevates the material, as do the characters. And so if you want to see a summer blockbuster that has a shot of adrenaline mixed with heart and pathos, you can't do better than Pacific Rim. So do check it out. I highly recommend it. And this is Jerry the Movies with your host, Jerry Saravia, signing off.